Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Business Series conversation. Today, our topic is community colleges responding to workforce demand. I'm Courtney Spencer, Vice President of Advertising for the Portland Press Herald. Our business projects editor, Carol Coultas, will be moderating the panel discussion on how community colleges are meeting the workforce demand for small businesses in Maine with their successful short-term training programs. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors for their support of our program. Thank you so much to Cross Insurance, Katahdin and Trust Company, Goodwill Northern New England, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, and our presenting sponsor, Machias Savings Bank. Here to say a few words is Jack Lufkin, Senior Vice President and Regional Market Manager for Machias Savings Bank in Southern Maine.
Thank you, Courtney. We are very thrilled to be the presenting sponsor of the Portland Press Herald's Business Event Series. As one of the largest Maine-based banks, we've grown by helping businesses and nonprofits find their yes. Luke's Lobster, Lone Pine Brewing, Med Rhythms, and Mainly Tubs have all partnered with us to move their businesses forward. We also say yes to community. We donated $1 million in 2021, and earlier this year, we launched our Yes Grant program, where the communities we serve will help us choose Maine nonprofits to share in over $100,000. Thank you, and please enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Jack, for your support of this series. With that, we'll turn it over to Carol and her panelists. We hope you enjoy.
Thank you, Courtney. Welcome, everyone, to this incredibly beautiful afternoon. We're very grateful that you're here to listen and to learn and to ask questions of our panel. When I considered this topic, it came from a position of just stepping back and looking at the amount of money that has been coming to Maine through both the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan. There are millions, actually billions of dollars headed this way, and much of it was earmarked for infrastructure and construction projects. And it made me wonder, I know that the construction industry in Maine is grappling with the same workforce shortages as other industries here. And so I just wondered, how are they dealing with that? And it occurred to me from some of our previous B2B forums, where we talk about tourism, I know that the Maine Community College System has been incredibly responsive, helping the hospitality industry through culinary arts degrees and credentialing and hotel management, particularly in York County. And it made me wonder if there was similar sort of fast track training that was happening in the construction arena. So I reached out, and in fact, there is. And while I was talking with folks at the community college system, they told me that those short-term training programs have grown by 600% over the last 3 years. And there's just been tremendous interest across the board and across the state. And I thought, well, okay, sounds like this could be a good topic for us to unpack at one of our B2B series. And then more recently, the community college system announced that they're launching a free tuition program. So I'm thinking there's going to be even more interest in these. And so for that reason, we picked this topic, and I'm really delighted. We have an A team of panelists to help us explore all of this. The first is David Daigler, is president of the Maine Community College System. He previously served as the system's chief financial officer from 2003 to 2019 and vice president 2015 to 2019. As president, David has greatly expanded workforce training programs through a historic $60 million public-private partnership, increased investments in key academic programs, overseen the launch of a free community college campaign, led a COVID response that deepened ties to state and local government and medical institutions statewide, and increased financial and educational supports for the 29,000 students that the system serves every year. And if that isn't enough to keep him busy, he's also the chair of the Finance Authority of Maine. Also joining us is Dan Belyea. He is the Chief Workforce Development Officer at the Maine Community College System and manages $62 million in short-term training funding through the new Herald Alphonse Center for the advancement of Maine's workforce. Dan has worked for the system for 33 years, and he currently serves on the State Workforce Board, is a member of the Maine Technology Institute, and serves on several other statewide boards. And finally, we have Christine Kendall. She acquired H.E. Callahan Construction Company in 2015, making it one of the largest female-owned businesses in Maine. Active on the executive board of the Association of General Contractors, where she happens to be logging in today, sorry. Christine is engaged in workforce development and the changing contractor requirements within the state of Maine. Through her career, she's been involved in several iconic projects, including the construction of the Alphon Center for Health and the redevelopment of the old Augusta and Waterville hospitals. In 2021, right smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, she started an architectural firm to offer turnkey services to H.E. Callahan Construction clients who approached her with a concept to execute. This gives the team the ability to take a project from concept through construction seamlessly. Christine has 28 years of construction experience and a particular expertise with contracting delivery. So I think we have a fabulous panel. And I'm going to just begin going back to that statistic I mentioned in my introduction. A 600% jump in short-term training programs over the last 3 years is big. Where are you seeing this increased interest? And are there certain industries that are driving this growth? And Dave or Dan, either one of you are happy to tackle that first.
Thank you, Carol. I'll just sort of lead in. I think Dan can put some real shape to this, but I will say that the short-term training program, the interest in the short-term training programs is driven strictly by demand. Okay. And while there are key industries out there, healthcare, manufacturing, construction, as you've mentioned, and hospitality, we're really seeing it from all sectors. There are a couple of things we really need to understand. In Maine, as is the case across the country, there are almost twice as many job vacancies right now as there are unemployed people. So there's intense demand on the hiring side. One of the interesting facts that we don't really sort of reflect on very often is that 1 in 4 of those job seekers come to realize that they don't have the skills necessary for the job that's vacant. So there is a skills gap. And that short-term training does a tremendous job of really filling that gap and really meeting the need for both the person who needs to get to work quickly and the employer, like Christine here, who needs those skills at the workplace almost immediately. Now, Dan, you're best to fill out where we've seen and where we've placed that demand and talk a little bit about how we get there. So I turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, David, and thank everybody for the opportunity to talk with you today and obviously talk about what's happening and also do some listening too with folks who are chiming in here and asking us questions. I hope they challenge us with some good ones. But the increase that we've seen, as David's outlined, is from the demand that's happening across the state. Every single industry is struggling to fill positions. Huge demand coming from our healthcare sector, our manufacturing sector, construction and trade sector, and we've responded. If you look at some of the areas that we've jumped into, it's heavy equipment operators, it's CDL, commercial drivers, A and B, it's welding, it's electricians, it's HVAC technicians, high boiler technicians, amongst a whole list of others. And we're responding with credentialing and training those folks quickly with credentials of value and access to licensure. And if you look at our numbers over just the past 2 years, 2 years ago, we trained in just short-term training about 3,600 individuals. Last year, closing out in June, we trained 6,300 individuals. Wow. And that was still during the pandemic. A lot of what we do is very unique to us. And we're able to take these sets of skills, work with employers, bring them into real-time training that not only meets the business needs, but also meets the learner needs. You know, we have a number of individuals in Maine who need immediate skills training to get into an immediate job. They don't have the time to hold out for 1 or 2 years. So this really fits that niche. And I'd be glad to talk about one of our really cool efforts on incumbent workers in the Maine Workforce Development Compact that's really focusing in on construction specifically.
Well, why don't you do that? Because I think, I mean, since it was construction that brought us to this topic initially, could you talk a little about your fast track program in that field?
Yeah, so in the new Herald Alphon grant that we were awarded in October, we launched the Maine Workforce Development Compact. And this is an agreement with businesses, associations, and other organizations throughout the state where they can partner with us, and then we can deploy professional development funding for frontline workers. To date, we have almost 290 members that have joined us. And of the 290, 75 are directly related to construction, trades, and manufacturing. And we're deploying resources to help train frontline staff for professional development training. And we launched this in January. We've deployed almost $1.5 million in training funds. And we have some really cool examples of organizations that are accessing these funds and getting their incumbent workforce trained.
Well, give us an example then. And then I'm going to ask Christine to talk about what that's been like from her perspective, either as the owner of a construction company herself or as a member of the AGC board. So give us an example, Dan.
Yeah. So one of the really cool examples is with Moody's Collision. We've trained approximately over 100 individuals. I think it's a little near 150 individuals in all sorts of professional development training that they needed for their employees. And we've deployed $55,000 in covering those costs. So a business can come to us. We can provide up to $1,200 through this private grant to provide that professional development training. There's great examples with other businesses, professional logging contractors of Maine, and others where they've joined us. Again, we've got almost 290 compact members that have joined us and really engaging in getting those skills. And what's really interesting about this project is only 19% of professional development training is going to frontline workers. Most of the professional development training across the country goes to mid-management and senior leaders. And so we saw this as a way to help upskill those frontline workers to get additional credentials so that they have the ability to move up in positions within companies. And particularly is helpful for those small and medium-sized businesses. And
the $1,200 is $1,200 per employee? Is
yes.
That, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Christine, have you been using that program? I know that you have used some of the community college system programs for your workforce. Have you been doing the professional development through the new Workforce Compact as well?
Not through the Workforce Compact, but we have been involved with the building construction program at Central Maine Community College for several years. And one of the things that I will compliment that team on is we get together on a quarterly basis. There's several companies that are involved, and they really talk about what's going on in the industry and what the industry needs are. So my confidence level that the community college system can handle the needs of businesses is extremely high, and I've seen them. They developed a one-year fast track program for construction individuals, which was a direct result of the feedback they had received from the partnering organizations on what the industry really needed. And what I can tell you is that when we talk about workforce development, we're talking about a group of people that are coming who are interested in the construction industry and have no experience, not little experience, but no experience. And with wage demands being as aggressive as they are, you know, our teams, our small businesses are struggling to train on the job while putting work in place. And so it's necessary for us to have a form of boot camp that coincides with them working with an employer and getting an education at the same time. It's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the employer because they're not training on the job. They can focus on the work. It's a win for the employee because they have started a job with great wages, benefits, and perhaps they're training, you know, either in the evenings or, you know, on a part-time basis. But, and then a win for the community college system. I mean, they are the right group to train people. They're educators, that's what they do. And my personal opinion is to leave the training to the experts. So I'm thrilled. I'm so excited for there to be opportunity because the demand for construction work is real. There's a lot of money that has been put into infrastructure and we currently cannot keep up or meet it. We are short. Every day I go to work, we talk about labor needs and where are we going to find people to do the work that we need to have done.
So just to clarify, Christine, the students who are involved in this program are being paid while they're going through the program, is that right?
So with the program, we've been involved with the Central Maine Community College. Yes, they partnered with us. They came and they were paid for their time working on the jobs, and they were also still in school at the time.
Okay.
And Carol, one of the other programs, and Christine highlighted a wonderful program at Central Maine Community College. One of our other programs is at Southern Maine Community College, and we have a really robust construction institute, and it's mirrored to what CMCC is doing, and it gives those students that introduction to OSHA, general safety and health training, fire protection, electrical safety, scaffolding, and really the basics. To come up to speed, to be able to gain access to that entry-level job. We've been running that program, and SMCC has been providing that in several cycles per year over the last several years, and it's got really, really good results.
And are those programs? So what kind of time frame are you talking about? If you're looking at someone who's interested in construction and they go into one of these programs, do they get paired with a potential employer right off the bat, or do they go through the program, learn the skills, and then when they get their credentials or complete the course, they're available for hire? And is it like 3 months or 6 months, or I'm just curious what kind of time?
It's a shorter term program, runs later in the afternoon. Around 3 months. But what the colleges do is they work with their employers in their regions and bring them in and connect them with the students. So the students can hear from the employers can connect with those students, and then bring them directly into the workforce. So they do job fairs and they invite them in, and it's a really collaborative experience for the business and the student.
Carol, that's an interesting function that differentiates this from what might be a normal academic program. Mm-hmm. The compacts, the building of a relationship between the college and the business connects the college to that business. That means that it connects it to the job vacancies that currently exist. It connects it to the skills that are needed to fill those vacancies. And so there is a very fluid transfer from that learner after sometimes a few weeks of training, sometimes a few months of training, from that training so that they get those skills. Remember, we mentioned that profound skills gap that exists earlier. They get those skills and then they have actual jobs. They're not in a position where now they have the skills and can go look for a job. Those connectors, those employers are there waiting for those employees to come through. Okay. Sometimes they're paying them stipends. Sometimes they're building relationships. Oftentimes they've actually got the job before they complete the training program.
Mm-hmm. So if I have a small company and I'm interested in checking out one of these fast track training programs because I have a hiring need, or I have workers who need to develop a particular skill set in order to be more flexible for my business goals. How do I do that? Like, Dan, take me through the steps. I'm a small, medium-sized business owner or manager, and I want to see what the community college system can do for me. So
yeah,
what do you tell them?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So if you hop onto our website, and I think we have a link to that we can walk the group right through it. It's very easy. We've got a description on our site, and it's linked right there. And that's showing the link up where businesses and learners can hop on and take a look at what we have to offer. We have a calendar of our training activities and upcoming training that's listed statewide. We have the ability for a business to link on to us and become a compact member instantly. And it takes about 2 minutes to do that in an easy form. We approve that, we get it into the system. And then we have a staff person that will reach out to the business and work with them to figure out what their needs are. At the same point, learners can jump onto that same website, go to the Learner tab, check out what we're doing, find out what's going on at our colleges, and make those connections. And if they want, we can have a staff person reach out to them as well. But it's a very easy process. It doesn't take a lot of time, and there's not a lot of red tape. And all of this short-term training that we're doing is no cost to the participant. And it's a great opportunity to get a new set of skills, get a credential of value, and really gain meaningful employment. And one of the things that David said was, we're using, we've got some money where we're infusing some stipends for individuals when they're in the training. We can provide some stipend support. We're working with the Maine Department of Labor and connecting folks through apprenticeship opportunities and associations throughout the state, and really trying to meet that learner where they are. We've got a great list of opportunities. Just as of today, we have funded over 2,000 seats for individuals in our 5 sector training areas. So there's a lot of no-cost training, a lot of opportunity to jump in, get those credentials quickly, and gain employment.
Cool. And Christine, can you tell me how your company did use workforce training with the community college system at Central Maine? Yeah,
we partnered with them with a couple of individual students that were going through the fast track program, which they would come and work with us during their non-class hours that aligned with our work days, and it was super flexible. The students that we received were, obviously extremely interested in construction, were devoted because they were in school already. We were really successful with those students. Many of them stayed on with us after they finished their education. A lot of them had high aspirations and moved on within the industry, and we're super supportive of that. So our experience has been extremely positive. We found the folks at Central Maine Community College very easy to work with, and always receptive of our feedback. And we're, again, as things evolve, we're looking forward to continuing to find new and interesting opportunities to train our staff, especially incoming staff. That's the hardest barrier for us at the moment. Any staff that, or folks that are interested in coming to work in construction and really have no experience, but have the desire to work, have a lot of those core skills. We want to be able to set them up for success, and education is part of that.
Cool. And I think that you had mentioned when we chatted earlier that the construction industry has like an 18-month or 2-year lag behind whatever sort of economic disruptions might be happening. I'd say we're sort of on the precipice of that, given what's happening with Wall Street and the Fed. And,
Yeah, so we definitely have an 18-month lag on recession. What's happening right now with construction is unprecedented, and is funneling its way. The increased costs of supply chain disruptions, the increased cost of fuel right now are having a direct impact on all my clients. They're having a direct impact on all my employees. People are, making decisions every day about what they should do or what they want to do. And it all boils down to money, and that turns into wage pressures for the organization. These people that work for us are human beings that we care about greatly. They're part of a team, and most small businesses are very much like a family. And so what impacts one of them impacts us all, maybe not necessarily financially, but emotionally. So there's, what's going on with the world today is having a ripple effect, I'm sure, with every organization, but hardest hit on these the skilled workers as well.
I think a lot of other companies are in the same boat. So but you're right, those challenges are really, that'll probably be our next topic when we get together again for a B2B conversation, because everyone, I think, is grappling with those issues and trying to find a way to solve them and to stay solvent and to grow. So yes. So speaking of money, I'm really curious about the impact that the free tuition program has had on the community college system. I know it was a relatively recent announcement, so maybe it's too soon to gauge, but I wonder, can you tell us what's been the impact of that announcement? I mean, probably, David, you're the best person to.
Yeah, I can lean in on that one. So you are correct, and it's the impact we are seeing as opposed to the impact we have had. Enrollment interest is very strong. Here's the thing, Carol. We already talked about the intense demand that exists out there for employees, but we also talked about the skills gap and how that's intensifying that demand. We're also seeing an economy that's going through incredible transition. First of all, we're seeing every day the increased use of technology and automation. We're seeing people who are quitting their job because they're unhappy with their current career. And we see adults who are not prepared for the new economy, for those advantages. So a high school student who may be swayed to bypass college and go directly into the workplace is actually making a mistake. Now, the good news is it appears as though they're talking to their slightly older peers, and that $18 an hour job isn't a panacea, because the person who has that $18 an hour job really can't go anyplace with that $18 an hour job. They're not getting to 19 or 20. They're just stuck. Now, and you just mentioned this when you talked about Wall Street and the impact we're seeing on the current economy, another change we're seeing is gas prices are going up, interest rates are going up, prices generally are going up. So that young person is going to need more than that $18 an hour job just to survive. And the good news is that the free college program takes off the pressure of tuition and fees. And for somebody who has graduated from the classes of 20 or 21, is graduating right now from the class of 22, or is looking to graduate in the class of 2023, that free college program is designed to help support them get a degree. Now, they've got to go to school full-time. That's an important factor because we see full-time students graduate at much higher rates. And the fact is, they just get into that workforce where that demand is so intense much sooner. But the demand, we are seeing incredible demand. And actually, the biggest problem we have right now is keeping pace with the applications and making sure that the students know that, yes, they can get in the program, that we have the slots that are available. We have always been pretty elastic in terms of our ability to absorb new students. Mm-hmm. And we have an entire portfolio of career development and workforce development options that are available to all students and, quite frankly, to adults. So we go from early college into, short-term training, and pass through the middle of that is, your traditional college-bound experience without the burden of tuition and fees. So it's a remarkable gift to a group of high school students who have really had a tremendous amount of challenge sort of getting grips and keeping pace with their learning. So there is no better recipe for that student who's lost a little traction in their learning, may not be as fully prepared as they would otherwise be going into an economy that needs more skill. It needs more it has more technology. And the good news is we are seeing really, really intense demand.
And is that demand is there a particular focus for it, or are there programs or degree programs or concentrations that you find are really becoming very popular with the announcement of the no tuition plan?
So our healthcare programs have always been very attractive. Students who require a degree to get a license, to get a job, have always seen that program as a potential interest. And so we're seeing expansion there. And we are trying to help support students understand that in some program areas or some occupational areas where you may not need a degree, but the degree really helps you get ahead faster. And that is in construction, it is in manufacturing, it is frankly in hospitality. You could go into hospitality and wait tables, or you could go into hospitality management in a few short years, actually be running the restaurant or something like that. So, but again, oftentimes you get that question and you're looking for a specific, it's right here. This is a situation where we are seeing demand across the employment spectrum in every sector.
Wow, I think that's interesting, and I think that's a bit of good news.
It's excellent news.
It's excellent
news. Yeah. In all seriousness, it's excellent news for Maine. Maine has an opportunity to reposition itself, to rebuild its construction sector, to rebuild its manufacturing sector, to lift wages, which have been in the New England region relatively low, and to attract new people in. We've seen during the pandemic people saying, hey, Maine, that's a pretty cool place. Let's go there. Dan has built up some programs specifically designed for people who might still be working from Boston or New York, but want to live here. But the ultimate goal is to get them to live here and to work here.
Mm-hmm. Dan, what are you doing about that? I didn't know that you have a plan within the community college system to get folks who are living away, but gaining the skills here with the idea that they'll come here. Is that true?
Yeah, so if you look at our portfolio that we're really fortunate to roll out, and you talked about it in the beginning parts of our session here, we have over $60 million in funding that we're deploying. Through the Maine Jobs and Recovery Program, we're deploying $35 million to train 8,500 individuals, and that's in those sectors we've mentioned: green economy, healthcare, trades, manufacturing. But through the Herald Alphon grant with incumbent workers, we're going to train a little north of 13,000 individuals, and have the opportunity to offer up to 5,000 free community college courses. But one of the other interesting programs that we have that we launched in January, and we're just in the third cohort, is helping folks in rural Maine become successful remote workers. And as everybody knows, we've had an in-migration to Maine from people who have come here and said, this is a really cool place to live, which I believe is the best place in the world to live, and have come here and have picked up jobs. And at the same time, we have a number of folks in rural Maine that have some significant barriers of housing, transportation, and childcare. So we have a remote learner program, a remote worker program that we launched, where we're going to train 700 individuals how to be successful remote workers, using and training them with occupational skills. We'll also be developing our certificate on how to supervise remote working teams. And we're putting together a credit course that will get embedded into some of our programs of study. But this is a great way for folks in rural Maine to access training, do it online at their pace. And with this remote worker program, we're also providing those learners a hotspot, laptop, and screen, so they can take the program, and then once they complete it, they can have that device. And that was through a grant we won through the Ascendium Foundation. So what's really cool is we have all of these options. And if a business or a learner wants to reach out to us or reach out to their local community college, contact the admissions office if it's free community college, or contact the workforce training office for all of these options. We do have an online open calendar to take a look at all of our options, and folks can click into those links and reach out and find out what else is happening and really find something that fits their current need.
So that's actually, I'm very curious, how do you design your program? Like, what's the mechanism for responding to when you introduce a new program? How are you seeing which need the community college system has to dedicate resources to meet? Because I think a lot of educational institutions are not terribly flexible, and it seems to me guys are pretty responsive. So I'm just curious, like, is there a critical mass of questions and you say, oh, we should get a short-term training program for this particular industry?
Yeah, so we do look at real-time labor data, but really Christine really described what has to happen. We have to work with businesses. We have to listen to what their needs are. We tailor programs with their input and with their feedback, saying, is this meeting what your current need is? So the relationships and the partnerships with our businesses is really crucial. We can't cook something up in the dark. And we also can't cook something up that's a dead end for a learner. It actually has to lead to a job. So the relationships, and Christine was talking about that relationship that she's developed at Central Maine Community College, and really that back and forth and helping us design what's there. We've got the specialists who can put it and package it and make it work and provide the instruction, but we really have to have that feedback. If you talk about or listen to what we've done with the remote worker grant, we set up a council that gave us direct feedback on how to develop that program. So we developed a remote worker council that's chaired by some of Maine's leading iconic businesses, and really given us that direct feedback on exactly what needs to be in the training. That's how it really works. It can't be done in the dark.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Carol, I think if you're really listening into what Dan is talking about, he's talking about building relationships with businesses and responding to those relationships. And we have focused, for as long as Dan and I have worked together, we've focused on building partnerships, on working. That's not a term for us that we now use for customer or for a vendor. It is a definition of a relationship where we are exchanging information, identifying needs, and then coming together and working to solve real-time problems. So Dan mentioned the compact. The compact is something of a formalization that says we've got this relationship and now we're going to work together. Mm-hmm. But we are responding. Yes, we have data that lives out there. We subscribe to all the databases, Burning Glass and Jobs EQ, and we do all that stuff. We crunch numbers back on our side. But what we're most responsive to is Christine and that employer and those workforce needs. Now, through the short term, that's easy for me to say, through the short term mechanism, we're able to be very responsive, pop up a need, and then be able to train to meet that need, and then move those resources very quickly on down the pike. And when I say on down the pike, Dan's the beneficiary now of a federal grant where he'll have mobile training units that'll be able to go into rural communities.
Oh, cool.
So that's the opportunity to be really responsive. On the other side of the fence, we're still looking at our academic programming, and we have colleges that have been very successful at working with our trainees and saying, you've got some skill, you've got some aptitude, your employer has some needs, and bringing them into our degree-bound programs. Now we've got that relationship with the employer. What we would like to do is we expand and build that relationship. Remember, this is a partnership. This isn't a one-off type of thing. We can then begin to work together to say, okay, what are the pay grade? What does your HR system look like? What are your pay grade opportunities for advanced skill development? What's your opportunity to give us, Christine referred to this, give a student time to get to class and then time to get back, so that we're removing that friction that a traditional student has between, do I go to work or do I go to school? And we're able to build that relationship stronger and better. So we talk about short-term training. We haven't lost sight on our degree programs, hence the free college program. And we're working to build those together in unison. But the primary source is that relationship with the employer. Mm-hmm. And Dan has built relationships like that. Dan and his team have built relationships like that all across Maine. Christine, you'll be happy to know about 25% of those relationships are in the construction industry. Yep. Also in manufacturing, they're in healthcare, they're in hospitality, they're across all of Maine's important industrial sectors. We're not looking through the fog and trying to anticipate what jobs are going to be hot next year.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the questions that was submitted in advance said, can you tell us if you're focusing on any new industries in the 2022-2023 calendar? So I don't know, can you speak to that?
We are focusing on new industries. We're focusing on new business relationships. We are building business relationships in aquaculture.
Aquaculture, okay.
And in agri-tech and in other places. Real time, but we're also working with those larger organizations. We have a very tight working relationship with the Department of Economic and Community Development, mm-hmm. who is looking at attracting those businesses. And we talk all the time about the businesses that are coming into the state and what their training needs are. Mm-hmm. We're working with Maine Company and with all of those organizations that are trying to attract new opportunities to Maine. Cool. Focus Maine is trying to attract pharmaceuticals. Yep. So we're building programs that help support that need. But what is a key factor here is Dan's programs are very flexible, very responsive. So you don't get a response. You say, well, we could have that up in about 2 years, and we see 4 years from now. This is
right.
No. We move, Dan. What's the phrase? We move at the speed of.
At the speed of business.
At the speed of business. Very good. Well, let's move to another questions. I see we have a few in the queue. So Strawberry, could you present the first question, please?
For sure. What documentation of residency is necessary to qualify for community college training programs? And for new Mainers, is work authorization required to enroll in community college short-term training programs?
Yeah, great question. So we ask for a address and we ask for an email, and requirement is 18 years of age and a high school equivalency or diploma. So it's very easy for us to make that verification. The other piece that you mentioned a little bit about is, we are working on a program so that we can hopefully help our new Mainers that are coming to Maine and getting them into training. And we're in the early stages of putting together a group to look at how we can help them, rate them in a system and get them to immediate employment. So we've got what's called SCORE, and we're in the early stages of examining that and seeing how we can do that. But the other piece too is how do we work with our new Americans, our low-income Mainers, folks who are in recovery, and those residents departing corrections, because those are populations that need some skill development and have the opportunity for employment here, for full employment here in Maine. And we're examining all of those ways that we can access those populations to help them gain those skills for high wage jobs.
Are you partnering with a lot of the associations that are advocating for different immigrant and ethnic groups? Or I know you're doing with a lot of professional organizations, but are you doing it with some of the cultural organizations too?
Yes, we are, and our colleges are making those connections as well. Very robust connections.
Cool. Great.
Building very strong relationships. One of the things we found with the new Maine community is that if we have at least an introductory class in their center, they have a little bit more comfort coming in, getting to know us, and we're able to work through some cultural barriers and then get them in a position to begin to learn and get the skills they need to get traction in this economy. And that happens by building a relationship with the New Maine Welcome Center.
Mm-hmm. Good. How about the next question, Strawberry?
Sure. Question from Lucy. What is being done to address the effect piece of the trades world? Is training being provided about the prohibition of racist and misogynistic language on the work floor? My relative is a trained, skilled machinist, but the atmosphere on the work floor was extremely off-putting.
So, Dan, I can let you lead in with the specifics around skills. I think we all have a responsibility to try and make sure that our workforce behavior is acceptable to everyone, and that we are sensitive not only to our own needs, but to everyone's needs. There is training in what Dan and I would call the soft skills area that can help support that. It needs to be reinforced through an employer who has those same values, and it needs to be built by everyone. And there's a theme on college campuses that businesses could pick up on, and that is, if you see something, say something. And it's talking about a behavior that is just not acceptable and trying to call it out, and then have a gentle coaching moment. But yeah, there's soft skill training that can be built out to help support that.
And we've got some great examples of our colleges providing leadership training to our many business partners. And David mentioned soft skills, and the other term that folks are using are power skills, are critical thinking and problem solving, and having those courageous conversations. But I think what David said is it's important that we all are facing these things in a kind and upfront way, and we do have some training that we can provide around the leadership development and help with a company that's interested in changing that type of culture.
And from
I was going to ask for yours.
Perspective, there's a lot of conversations that are happening around this, and a lot of diversity and inclusion that we are participating in and supportive of. And we talk a lot about, just because we're contractors doesn't mean we're not professional. So this conversation is happening in real time within construction, and it is a great, wonderful point. From my perspective, it's one of the things that has prevented the growth of women within the field trades, the skilled trades. And so it's cleaning up the job site from a lot of different perspectives is important to me as well.
And we've also developed a micro-credential around this, and we're getting ready to launch the DEI micro-credential to help address this issue.
Oh, cool. That's great. That's great. Next question, Strawberry.
Question from Joseph. Do the programs fund tools and equipment for the students?
Yeah, great question. The short-term workforce training provides those tools. So it provides, in many cases, the boots, the scrubs, the stethoscopes, and the required tools to participate. And it's important that it's inclusive, because many Mainers don't have the dollars to go out and spend that on those tools. So yes, we do.
Cool. I would just say, once you get to the workforce as well, employers are also pitching in and helping out people have their personal hand tools and filling their tool bag up.
Great. A question that was submitted with a registration asks, how many of the employers you serve are involved in expanding international trade? Do you have programs to train workers to respond to needs of customers outside of the US? So I'm just curious. It's I mean, certainly there's been a lot of, there have been a lot of resources that have gone into expanding Maine's international trade capability, particularly with the port in Portland. But I don't know if there's been any sort of concentrated effort to train folks in international trade.
Well, I don't have the full answer to that, but I can tell you that our manufacturing partners that we're working with are receiving, training that we're providing that obviously is rolling out into the international scene. So I'd have to get back to you on that information, but we don't have a very specific program around that.
Mm-hmm. I know from looking at the Department of Labor's job outlook for Maine, I believe that CNC operators, manufacturing folks, was the biggest category of job growth expected over that 10-year analysis. So I'm sure that some of that has to do with international trade.
Sure.
Let's take another question, Strawberry.
Sure. A question from Melissa. How does academic remediation intersect with these workforce programs? Are students who need remediation able to access these programs, or must they remediate in a pre-identified level first? This question applies to ELL students and students with academic challenges.
I don't know, Dan or Dave, how were you sure that that the students, oh, you're all set, okay.
I'm sorry, Carol. After 3 years on Zoom, you'd think I would know to turn off the mute button, wouldn't you? So where we are in terms of remediation is in a very different place than where we were with remediation. Okay. What we have is what we call co-requisite courses. It's a fancy term for trying to make sure that we start the student in the right place and then continue to advance them. One of the interesting factors that's built in there is that we're making sure that we're teaching the student the skills they need for the job at hand. So if you go into our academic programs, you don't see algebra quite so much anymore as you see the math that is required. If we're training somebody for Christine's, the construction fields, they're working with fractions on a regular basis. So too are folks in our logger training program, where they've got to be prepared to, repair a major machine and understand how to convert sometimes fractions into units because of it's almost like translation. So when we start building programs, English, math, all of those kinds of things, in the areas that directly relate to the path of study and the career opportunity, the student gets much more traction, learns and understands them. And many students, and I have members of my family that are in this category, think of algebra as some kind of esoteric Greek language. And so rather than trying to make sure that a student masters A over B equals C, we make sure that they understand what that means in their workplace and applies it in their workplace. It may be about, changing, the exchange of money. It may be about fractions. It may be about different decimal points. If you're in precision manufacturing, and you mentioned precision manufacturing, 5 of our colleges have precision manufacturing programs. Each of them is shaping themselves a little bit differently to support an industry that has tremendous demand. But they have to understand, micro fractions. And so, but it develops a new meaning to the student. And the learning aptitude all of a sudden starts to grow and the completion rates get much higher. So we're actually not remediating students anymore. We're meeting them where they are and then giving them the skills they need to succeed in the program of study that they've entered.
Oh, that sounds very tailored. So, and now I'm going to ask a question that was submitted with a registration, and that is, how can education intermediaries and nonprofits help you continue to offer more short-term workforce training programs statewide? So maybe not so much the classic business partnership, but education intermediaries, nonprofits, I mean, nonprofits are a very significant aspect of Maine's economy. So, so I'm just curious, how are you building relationships with them?
Yeah, so another great question. We, through the Maine Workforce Development Compact, we're also signing up third-party training vendors. So we can bring in those partners that if we find a training need that we're not able to produce on our own, we can go to those third-party training vendors and partners and help us through adult eds, through nonprofits, through other trainers that can provide that service. So yeah, we've signed up, I believe, over 80 of those third-party training vendors that have joined us to help us as we go about training 24,000 Mainers over the next 4 years.
So you aren't always, every time you launch a new program, you're not necessarily hiring your own staff. There's an opportunity for you to contract with others who have that expertise.
We do, and that's the work we're doing through the Maine Workforce Development Compact.
Okay.
So if we can provide it in-house, we're going to provide that in-house in every capable way. If we don't have the capacity to do that, we have third-party training vendors that can assist us.
Oh, interesting. Cool. How about, there's still a question in this queue, Strawberry.
How are we working to make it easier for new Mainers to access higher education without a U.S. GED? Obtaining a GED can be cumbersome and discouraging because of the time commitment to achieve this goal, and some simply cannot access documents.
So Dan, if you want to talk about that on the training front, if they're applying to a college program and an academic program, we have essentially built pathways to help adapt and again, meet the student where they are. They have to be prepared for college level work. So we may partner with adult ed if they're not prepared for college level work. But there are, and we work also with the Department of Education so that we're sure that we have a verification that the student has, in fact, been prepared for college level work, completed some high school equivalency programming, but that may be high set, it may be GED, it may be a homeschooling program. There are a variety of different ways in which we can achieve that. And looking at international credentials and pairing international credentials to our credentials is one of the vehicles that the colleges, it's one of the tools that the colleges can use.
Yeah, and that's same for the workforce side as well.
Oh, and we still have another question in the queue.
Great.
Question for Christine. When you talk to firms in other states, what other innovative programs or supports for industry do you hear about that you wish you'd wish to see one day in Maine?
So the higher ed space.
Wait. David, that was for Christine.
Oh, Christine, great. I didn't hear that part.
That's okay. That's okay.
No, so, you know, Maine is, as they've talked about, Maine is a beautiful state, and it's a great place to live and to work. And as you go out into other states that, you know, have been able to successfully navigate some of the challenges of the new work that we're undertaking in our state, like solar, you know, you wonder, you have to wonder, you know, how they did it. You know, we're not reinventing the wheel here. You know, other states have done it. There has been other workforce challenges, and we, you know, we have a great place to live and work. I would just love to continue to see people migrate back to the state with the knowledge that they've learned elsewhere and bring it back to either their home state or discover a new home state here in Maine. So I don't know that answers your question, but if anybody else wants to chime in, go right ahead.
That's, if you want, David, there you go. There's the invitation.
I apologize, first of all, to Christine, because I didn't hear the question directed her way. And both Dan and I are out looking all the time at new programs that can help support our initiatives, help keep our students in their seats, help attract trainees, and really get them into the workforce as quickly as possible. I do have to say that oftentimes I come back and think in my head, I think we got the formula right, but we're always learning from our partners and we're always exchanging with other partners in higher education. And I think you're going to see huge changes in the different sectors of higher education as we go forward.
Oh, interesting. Well, I think we'll leave it there. I think it would be fascinating to see come October, when you've had a full year of your workforce compact under your belt, to see where things stand. I think there's a lot of innovation around this. And so congratulations to the architects of that, because I think it is really a tangible way that the state is responding to this historic workforce crunch. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to Strawberry, our behind the scenes Zoom guru, and to our sponsors for making this possible, to everyone who registered today. This recording will be posted, and everyone who's registered, even if you couldn't make it, you will get a link and you can review the video and all of the comments. But most especially, thank you to the panelists who shared their insight and their expertise with us today. I really appreciate that. And with that, this is our last B2B forum until the fall. So enjoy summer, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.